here. H-E-A-R. All right? Now, if you don't know, if you've been living on a rock, if you haven't been seeing me pop off on Reddit and on Instagram and just generally giving the weebs what for, Canada absolutely dismantled Japan today. This morning, Canada, after a sketchy start to the 2025 World Championships and a 3-1 win over Libya, put up an absolute masterclass against Japan today, and we're going to break it down point by point. It was really just dominant by Canada on so many levels. They dominated in pretty much every single one of the categories, right? It was an absolute domination in offense. Not only did they outkill Japan 40-33, the attacking numbers were way different. 57% kill percentage and a 49% efficiency by the Canadians versus only 43 kill percent and a 19% efficiency by Japan. And the disparity doesn't end there. Blocking absolutely huge in this one. Canada's block much better after the game one against Libya. Dan Lewis talked about it in his post-game presser against Libya that, hey, we need to be better blocking. We need to be more aggressive in blocking. And there's even times in the timeout where for early in the first set, and he talked about, hey, we don't need to be going up with these guys. We just need to be going straight over. All right. And we saw it in this one. Canada, 10 stuff blocks to Japan's only 2, but it also had on the touches. And 11 touches to only 6 for Japan. It was absolute domination at the net, both offensively and defensively for Canada. Serving wise, on the surface level, it looks like Japan did much better. They got 7 aces versus Canada's only 3. But I will say that a lot of those aces in favor of Japan was just momentary lapses of judgment, just questionable service from Canada, which, you know what, we've come to expect being Canada. However, when you look down into the numbers a little bit, Canada had much better reception overall. Japan, 44% positive and only 13% perfect versus Canada's 42% positive and 26% perfect. And that was the biggest difference, in my opinion. Japan, for the style of play that they run, for the way that they play volleyball, for the speed that they need to run, they need to be in system. And they just weren't. They weren't throughout the entirety of this match, right? Just really struggling to be in system. Whereas Canada, I thought their side out game was so clean. So clean on first ball side out, and then really good in transition. And we'll talk about that a little bit as well. And then, of course, defensively, you can see it there. It's not often that you have Canada or anyone really outdig Japan, but that was exactly what it was today. It was a workhorse type mentality for the Canadians. They were third line grinders, and they went out and really smothered the Japanese offense. 51 digs for Canada and only 44 for Japan. Now, I did have a notion that this match was going to be a really good one for Canada when Luke Herr went off on that serving run in the first set, right? It was 6-6, then all of a sudden it was 12-6, and there's always something special when Luke can go on one of those serving runs, and that's exactly what we saw when Canada beat the U.S. at home in Ottawa in the 2024 World League, or Nations League, sorry, aging myself a little bit here, or also when Canada beat Cuba in the semifinals of the 2023 NORCECA Championships, which you can watch right here on this channel because we streamed it. There's just something. He just has a little bit something where, you know what, when his serving is crisp, the rest of his game is crisp, and that is exactly what we saw in this one for Canada. And I mean, was, as I said before, Canada's offensive numbers, 57% kill percentage, 49% perfect. They only got blocked 2 times. Their block was only touched, I think, a total of 8, right? So it was just really a clinic at the net for Team Canada. There was only a couple of times where I said to myself, oh, maybe that wasn't the best decision. He spread that ball out nicely, in serve receive, a lot of Hogue, a lot of Vernon-Evans, in transition, a lot of Kofi. Kofi was absolutely unreal. And I mean, Dan Lewis even talked about it afterwards, that it's very tough to set someone like Kofi because he doesn't hit a very traditional ball. So it was an unreal job by Luke Herr, and you could just tell that it just permeated through the rest of the team. All right, it was unreal. Now, first and foremost, we have to talk about this man right here. I don't want to hear any more Shawan Vernon-Evans slander. I don't want to hear any bullshit about how he's washed, about how he was playing for a third-rate Japanese team, or, look at what happened when he played for Perugia. If you've ever talked shit about Shawan Vernon-Evans in the past few years, shut your mouth. Just absolutely shut your mouth, because he just put on an absolute clinic. I mean, he was unreal. Absolutely unreal. 14 points, 12 for 23. He was 52% hitting, 43% efficiency, 1 block and 1 ace, and he was good everywhere. He was making digs. He was getting touches on the block. That serving run that he went on in the second set really opened up that set and really started to clinch it for us. He was absolutely unreal all match long, and I am so happy. I am so happy to see this man back in a Team Canada jersey. It warms my soul. He's someone that I've watched grow up here in the OVA system, watched him playing for Pac-Man, watched him play on the beach, heard about his struggles at the FTC, watched him bloom in 2017 and grow and grow and grow. And he's someone that I always hoped would come back to the national team. And the way that he did it in this one, absolute chef's kiss, no notes. He was unreal. Okay. Now moving forward, Capitaine, mon Capitaine, let's go. Another man that I've heard so much slander about in the Discord. Oh, when is Nick going to retire? Oh, when is he going to go on? And guess what? He went out there and set the tone. All right. 13 points, 12 for 20, 60% hitting, 45% efficiency. He was almost automatic, but it was the way that he was doing it too. He had a crazy cross-court attack at one point, a beautiful 4-4, but then his out of system, because his passing maybe wasn't the best, and of course Canada was out of system a little bit throughout this one, but his ability to score off the net, hitting elbows, going high off hands, using that block day by day by day, shot by shot by shot, it was absolutely unreal from Nick Hogue. I haven't seen him in this form, man. Maybe I haven't seen him, but him out there reminded me of watching him dominate for Quebec at the 2013 Canada Games in Sherbrooke. That's what it was, a vintage Nick Hogue for me. And you absolutely love to see it just stepping up after Canada was a little bit sketchy in the first match against Libya. So you love to see Le Capitaine, Mr. Nicolas Hogue, just going out there and absolutely balling it out. You love to see it. It was awesome. Now, moving through, I talked about Kofi. He was unreal. There was a moment in the second set where they just kept on feeding him, and nothing could be done. Same thing in the third. Nothing can be done when a guy is hitting the ball at 12 feet at its peak. Okay, he was 8 for 9 in attacking. He had an 89% efficiency with 1 block. He said he only had 1 block too, which I think is absolutely ludicrous. I don't know who's out there keeping these stats, but Kofi was unreal. And the reality is that if he's going to be hitting the ball like that and Luke is going to be finding him in that space, there's not many middles in the world who are going to be able to contest like that. He's not floating up there looking and hitting the ball. He's not hitting a meter ball. He's hitting a quick. Luke is shooting that ball up and he's cutting it off and taking angles. It was absolutely unreal from Kofi. Now, real quick, lost reverence. Shawan Vernon-Evans was great. Volleyball Canada did beg him to come back. That was a Shawan Vernon-Evans decision. If you know me, you know I'm susceptible to being maybe a little critical of Volleyball Canada, but we can't be critical of Volleyball Canada for not having Shawan Vernon-Evans around. That was a Shawan Vernon-Evans decision, and it was his decision to come back, okay? So anyone out there be like, oh, stupid Volleyball Canada, that wasn't a Volleyball Canada thing, okay? It absolutely wasn't throughout this one, okay? Kofi, coming back to him right here, also led us in break points, right? 5 break points on the night. And to me, that means as soon as this team is in a transition, his ability to get off the net, identify the ball, and get to the net is so good. His speed, right? He's actually not the biggest guy out there. I think he's like 6'5", 6'6". He's not huge for being in the middle. Obviously, he's one of the best jumpers in the world, but his speed is what makes it so important. And he has such underrated footwork. For him to be able to hit the ball the way he does means that his footwork is so on point. And I'm actually going to have to do a breakdown of his footwork and the way he hits the ball, because there's no one else who does it like him in the world. And a lot of people need to be taking notes, because next year is going to be fun for when he's playing for Lublin. And now, I think when you look up and down the lineup, when you look up and down the roster for this one, it was unreal. This man right here, Isaac Islinga, he had a really poor start to the tournament, ended up getting subbed out for Jackson Young, but I thought he bounced back really well. 8 points in this one, and he was also our best passer, 48% positive, 38% perfect on 21 targets. He had the most targets on the team. And as I said, he was super clutch in the third set, made a couple of blocks as well, and was just overall unreal. You love to see that from the rookie who'll be heading to Tools for his first season of pro next year. And then you also got to give a big shout out to, I guess, the former captain in Finn McCarthy. He was big up at the net. Offensively, maybe not the best game for him. I think he was about 2 for 6, but he had 4 blocks in this one and a couple of massive one-on-one stuffs at big moments just to get the boys going. And then you cannot forget Mr. Golden Bear himself out of Vernon, BC, Landon Curry, led the match in digs, just is able to keep the boys going, keep the rallies alive. And it was wonderful to see how the entire team just did their role, played the role. It was an absolute masterclass by none other than Mr. Dan Lewis. Dan Lewis outcoached the shit of Laurent Tilly in this one. It wasn't even close. It was not even close. How this team was prepared on the blocking. Their block defense was absolutely unreal. That was textbook Maple Volleys volleyball. I thought that there was so many times where, his timeouts were well planned. As soon as Japan started getting that momentum going, Lewis was out there to make the call, and also with the applicable feedback as well, right? We'll talk about Tilly's timeouts in a little bit, but I thought that every single time Dan Lewis made the timeout, he was always giving good feedback, always sharing information. That to me is how well they were dialed in on this game plan. You could tell that this team came in prepared for they came prepared for Japan to be their best. They weren't expecting this one to go for 3. I absolutely guarantee it. They were not expecting it, but instead we saw one of the best matches, if not the best match from Team Canada this summer. And I think so much of the credit, sure, the guys have to go out there and play, and they did that, but this man right here got them ready. Everything was unreal, and it was so good to watch. I am so glad I woke up at 2 a.m. for that one. I'm a little sad I didn't do a watch along, because you guys would have seen a lot of fist pumping, a lot of whispered fist pumping at 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. It was unreal. Just this way, especially the way all the weebs have kind of shit on us over the years. This one felt really good. Now,